I'm asking for forgiveness and mercy too. I want to live, and I'm very ashamed and very sorry about what I did. I do not believe that I was born a bad seed, but I think this is my greatest assignment in life. Please live. Please let me live.
On the night before her execution, Wanda Jean Allen reportedly looked at the prison chaplain and said a sentence that left the entire room silent. "I hope they finally hear me, even when I'm gone." It was a small line, quiet, soft, barely above a whisper. But that single sentence became the key to understanding her final 24 hours, hours filled with legal battles, unanswered questions, emotional moments, and a calmness that surprised even the staff who had guarded her for years. This is the story of Wanda Jean Allen, the woman whose execution in 2001 captured national attention, ignited debate, and left behind a legacy that people still discuss today. Before her case became national news, before lawyers and reporters filled the courtroom, Wanda Jean was simply a young woman growing up in Oklahoma City. Born in 1959, she grew up surrounded by poverty, limited opportunities, and a long list of challenges most people never fully understood. Public records show that from childhood, she suffered from serious neurological problems, a result of trauma and a head injury that left long-term effects on her cognition. Psychological evaluations years later would reveal that her IQ was significantly below average, something her defense insisted shaped her entire life, including the choices that brought her into the criminal justice system. As Wanda entered adulthood, she found herself searching for stability, love, and a sense of direction. But the relationships around her were often turbulent, emotional, and filled with conflict. One of those relationships, in the early 1980s, would become the center of everything that followed. Years before her execution date was even imagined, Wanda had already been involved in a tragedy. In 1981, she shot and killed Dedra Pettis, another woman she knew personally. Wanda claimed the shooting was accidental, and prosecutors accepted a plea to manslaughter. She served prison time, and when she was released, she tried to rebuild her life. But life didn't unfold the way she hoped. A few years later, in Oklahoma City, Wanda entered another intense relationship, this time with Gloria Jean Leathers, a woman described in court records as both her partner and someone deeply connected to her emotional world. Their relationship was complicated, filled with arguments and moments where emotions ran high. On December 2, 1988, everything changed. According to prosecutors, Wanda and Gloria had a heated confrontation outside a convenience store. The argument escalated, tempers rose, and in the midst of that chaotic moment, Wanda pulled out a gun. A single shot was fired. Gloria Jean Leathers was struck and later died from her injuries. For the state of Oklahoma, this was not seen as a mistake, not a moment of panic, not an accident. They argued that Wanda's history, including the earlier killing of Dedra Pettis, showed a pattern. And this time, the court treated the case with the highest severity. Wanda Jean Allen was convicted of first-degree murder for the death of Gloria Jean Leathers, and it was this crime, the murder of Gloria, that ultimately placed her on death row. From that moment forward, Wanda's life became a long fight through appeals, evaluations, courtroom battles, and public debates, all leading to the final 24 hours that shaped the last chapter of her story. Over the years, her case began drawing more and more attention. Her lawyers argued that Wanda didn't fully understand the trial process, the consequences, or the complexities of her defense. Advocacy groups stepped in. Human rights organizations took interest. Celebrities released statements. Journalists traveled to Oklahoma to cover every development. For a long time, the growing attention delayed her execution date. But eventually, in January 2001, her final appeal was denied. The clock began ticking, and Wanda Jean Allen entered the last chapter of her life. Despite the gravity of what was coming, those who saw her in her final days described her as unusually calm, thoughtful, composed, almost peaceful in a way that confused some of the guards who had known her for years. But her quiet sentence, "I hope they finally hear me, even when I'm gone," revealed the truth beneath that calm surface. She wanted her story to be understood. She wanted her voice to matter. She wanted to be heard, even if the world had already made up its mind. And as the final day approached, the emotions, conversations, and decisions inside that prison began shaping the last 24 hours of Wanda Jean Allen's life. Those final hours, the moments no one forgets, we will explore in Part 2. The morning of her final day began quietly, almost too quietly. Inside the Oklahoma State Penitentiary, the routine was the same as always. Footsteps in the hallway, the metallic click of cell doors, the distant hum of fluorescent lights. But everyone who worked there knew this day was different. Wanda Jean Allen had entered her final 24 hours. Despite the gravity of what was coming, officers later said she carried herself with a strange kind of stillness. Not cold, not detached, just accepting. Some described it as the calm of a person who had spent nearly 2 decades fighting and simply had no strength left to resist the ticking of the clock. As the morning turned to afternoon, Wanda was taken through the process that death row inmates face on their final day. A series of forms, final checks, final signatures. Each step felt mechanical, but the weight behind every document was enormous. She understood what these papers meant. This was the end of her appeals, the end of her legal battles, the end of the life she had known since entering prison as a young woman. Yet even then, she maintained that soft composure the guards had noticed the night before. When she was asked if she wanted a spiritual advisor with her through the final evening, she nodded. By late afternoon, she received what the warden called her last meal. Those present later said she ate slowly, quietly, as if tasting each moment rather than the food itself. She wasn't emotional. She didn't tremble. She just seemed deep in thought, her eyes fixed on a spot far beyond the cafeteria wall. Some officers said it looked like she was replaying her entire life in her mind. Others believed she was trying to make peace with whatever waited for her next. As evening approached, Wanda was allowed a short phone call. It was brief. Too brief for a final conversation, but the tone of her voice made an impression on everyone who heard it. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She no longer begged for time she knew wouldn't come. Instead, she thanked the person on the other end. Simple, soft, grateful. Shortly after the call, she met with her attorneys one last time. They discussed the final petition that had already been denied, the options that no longer existed, the hours that were slipping away whether she spoke or stayed silent. Her lawyers later said that in that moment, Wanda appeared more concerned about how they were handling it than how she was, almost like she felt responsible for the weight they carried. Night fell slowly that day, as if the world itself hesitated to move forward. With only hours left, Wanda sat with the prison chaplain again, the same person who had heard her whisper the night before. "I hope they finally hear me, even when I'm gone." This time she didn't repeat it. She didn't need to. Her expression said everything. She was ready, and as midnight approached, and officers prepared for the escort to the execution chamber, Wanda Jean Allen stepped into the final chapter of her life, one that would reveal moments the public never saw. Those final moments, those last words. We'll explore them in Part 3. The final hours were filled with small, quiet moments. Wanda spent time with her spiritual advisor. She talked about forgiveness, about fear, and about wanting her story to matter. She didn't lash out. She didn't cry. Instead, she expressed something closer to resignation. Not defeat, but acceptance that her voice could only travel so far, unless someone chose to carry it further. When the time came to move her to the chamber, the atmosphere shifted. A kind of hush fell over the staff. They escorted her carefully, respectfully. Wanda walked without hesitation. She did not resist. She did not tremble. She kept her eyes straight ahead, almost as if she were determined to leave her last impression calmly, deliberately, on her own terms. Witnesses said she looked composed as she was prepared for the procedure. She turned her head toward the glass where observers watched in complete silence. And in that final moment, her last chance to say anything at all. She spoke words that stayed with everyone who heard them. I forgive, and I ask for forgiveness. That was it. No long speech, no anger, no declarations. Just a short sentence meant for anyone willing to listen. At 9:21 p.m. on January 11, 2001, Wanda Jean Allen was pronounced dead. Outside the prison gates, reporters waited in the cold Oklahoma night. Some wrote about the legal controversies that had followed her case for years. Others focused on her final statement. And across the country, conversations reignited about justice, mercy, and the complicated intersection of punishment and mental health. But inside the prison, after the witnesses left and the room emptied, the silence returned. A life marked by struggle, shaped by conflict, and ended by law had come to its final chapter. And just like she whispered the night before, I hope they finally hear me, even when I'm gone. Her story didn't end with her execution. It continued in the questions she left behind.